Well, hello, good evening. My name is Susan Oxtoby. I'd like to welcome you to the Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive, to the Barbara Osher Theater, home for our year-round screening program, which offers a diverse array of international cinema from all periods of film history. Of course, this evening is the launch of our Ingmar Bergman 100 retrospective, which will run for 11 months. We will present over the course of this year some 75 programs. And we are delighted that we have a number of wonderful guests. Of course, this evening's appearance by Liv Ullmann, and on Saturday night for the presentation of Shame. It is a great, great honor to have Ms. Ullmann here for this festive launch. And it is a great pleasure that we are also partnering with the California Film Institute's Christopher B. Smith Raffel Film Center, where Ms. Ullmann will be presenting an on-screen conversation, or an on-stage conversation with our dear colleague Richard Peterson, who's also here tonight. And that's tomorrow night at 7:30. And another presentation in San Rafael on Sunday afternoon. So I do want to speak just briefly about how extraordinary this Bergman 100 project is and how unusual it is for BAMPFAs. We don't rarely turn over so much of an annual year's worth of programming to a single director, but in this case, the timing seemed perfect. Across the course of the year, we will be presenting our films thematically. So this evening, we begin Bergman 100, a tribute to Liv Ullmann, and across the next few weeks, we'll be able to present a number of films that she worked on with Ingmar Bergman. In the spring, we'll devote our programming to the issue of the silence of God in Bergman cinema, and we'll be hosting Bart Testa from the University of Toronto in early March. And then so forth through the year. The summer season will be Smiles of a Summer Night, with many of the films that were shot on the island of Faro. And then next fall, I do have to say that one of the partners on this project who's not present tonight, Professor Linda Rugg, Associate Dean of Arts and Letters here at UC Berkeley, and who's currently on sabbatical in Stockholm, she will be offering a Wednesday afternoon class in focus Bergman 100, and throughout the whole fall semester, both members of our general public, but also students at Berkeley will be seeing Ingmar Bergman's films with lectures and with a full cinema, the way these films were really meant to be seen. So I do think we're in a very unique situation, poised between the campus and the Bay Area, the Bay Area's wonderful film community, where we have so many riches and presentations almost every night. Let me be sure to acknowledge our partners, the Ingmar Bergman Foundation in Stockholm, for all of their support, the Svenska Film Institute, the Swedish Film Institute in Stockholm, Janus Films in New York City, the Norwegian Consulate General here in San Francisco, Norway House Foundation, the Swedish Consulate General of San Francisco, and the Barbara Osher Proswatia Foundation, and in particular, Barbara Osher's help throughout the past more than a year to help make this weekend's activities possible with Liv Ullmann's visit, but also lending her stewardship throughout the whole year. I have to say that this evening is the US launch of the Bergman 100 retrospective. This series begins next Wednesday night in New York at Film Forum. And it is actually just a great, great occasion for all of us. Let me say a word or two, just a personal note. The cinema of Ingmar Bergman is extremely close to my heart. My first film that I saw, first foreign film that I saw, was The Silence as an 11-year-old at the side of my cinephile parents. And then later in high school, but also in university, I'm one of the many people out there who wrote essays on persona. At the time, I remember bringing in a 16mm print from Carleton University, and I spent time in a room at the library watching Persona 6 times in 3 days, and being amazed by its innovative form. And this film is very much a turning point film in my understanding of what the art of cinema can be. But of course, it is a true honor to welcome Liv Ullmann, who is an actor, writer, director, and a human rights advocate, starting her career on her career on the Norwegian stage as Anne in The Diary of Anne Frank, but of course throughout her career performing both on many of the world's great stages as an actor and working as a theater director, and of course her role similarly in cinema as an actor and director. So I hope you'll help me now in a very, very warm welcome to Liv Ullmann.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, tremendously happy. All over the world right now they are celebrating Ingmar Bergman. But I think this is a very, very special place to celebrate him. And for me it is, because I have very close ties to San Francisco. Like 40 years ago, or more than that, I made a movie here called Sandy's Bride, and I will never forget the time I spent here and in Carmel. I am to introduce a new kind of movie, which this was for Ingmar. He had, for many years, put the mirror on other people and what he observed on other people and their relationships and their possibility to connect and their struggle to connect and not to connect at all. And suddenly I feel with this movie he put a mirror on himself, and he went into himself in a new way, and thus putting a mirror at himself, he also put a mirror on all of us. As it said here, he passed the mind and he went right into the soul. I'll just read something that when I came as a 25-year-old actress with many years as an actress behind me, I was still shy, didn't speak a lot, and I was to be in a movie that he had written for Bibi Andersson, and he met me on the street when I visited Bibi Andersson, and he said, oh, would you like to be in my movie? And I was so amazed. He's asking me, I'm Lana Turner, you know, sitting in a bar, and somebody's asking her that. And it was 2 pages, and I was working on that, and then came the telephone from Sweden, knowing Ingmar Bergman, he was sick, he wasn't going to do it, and he was in a hospital. And Bibi and I called each other, and we were very disappointed, and we went on a travel to Poland and to Czechoslovakia, and when we came to Czechoslovakia, seeing theater and films, the embassy got hold of us and say, Ingmar Bergman is well again, you know. He's out of the hospital and he's starting to do a new film, and both of you are going to be in it. And I know why I went to the hospital, because he did that in the time I've known him. Each time he didn't want to do something, he became very, very sick. And his claim was, and I'm not so sure this is the truth, the claim was that he had seen pictures of Bibi and me while he was in the hospital, and he got inspired to make this movie about these 2 women who looked so much like it themselves, and I don't think that is the truth at all. I think in the hospital he started to really look into himself, and he felt that his life was changing, and he was scared and disgusted by the world around him and what it was doing to his life and to his soul. And it scared him, and he wanted to go into silence. But instead of going into silence, he wrote the script of Persona. And Persona is about a woman who decides to go silent, and a nurse who takes care of her and speaks to her and tries to make contact with her. I didn't say anything in the movie. I had one line, which was nothing, and that was good. And I couldn't have explained to him what I understood by the script, because I was 25 years old and Bibi was somewhat the same. But I knew something. I knew I was Ingmar Bergman. I knew, I listened to him, I saw him, I knew what I was personifying, and that was him. And I wrote down something, which I'll read for you. He didn't give us much directions. He wanted us to read the script and to understand what each scene was about. But he told me of his grandmother, who taught him to seek the high mountains, the vast clouds, the silent forests, the rippled spring. He told me about the unknown destination of his life. What unknown destination? He said, I was there once when I was very young. Since then, I'm trying to find my way back. And my theory is, this is him starting a new way of making films, trying to find his way back. There will be dream sequences here. Are they dreams, or did they happen in reality? This film is open for your fantasy. I will come back and be very happy to take questions. I'm not going to see the movie with you, and I'm going to quote Ingmar again, because I've heard him do that once. He said, well, I'm so nervous for what people will say and think when they see the movie. Even if there had been a cat there, I would worry about what the cat is wondering about. So I'm saying the same. I look forward to see you afterwards. Thank you.
So now with great pleasure, we welcome back Liv Ullmann for a chance for your questions and your comments about Persona. And I'll just say as she's coming down that we like to make certain that the microphone reaches the person who's speaking. So if you could be patient and wait for the microphone to reach you after you've been called on, that would be a big help. Liv Ullmann, why don't you take the podium?
I would have had great trouble to know what I would ask about if I'd seen that movie for the first time. But it will sink into you if you have questions that you are not asking. And if you look at the end, let's say that is Ingmar, as a boy, doing what his grandmother told him. Go into something deep within yourself and try to figure it out. And that became Persona, and for many, a lot of filmmakers were tremendously inspired by this movie. And so much of it has been stolen and used in a lot of other movies. So what may look old today was completely new at that time. And you had two young girls of 25 and 26 that had read the script and felt something for the script and was very inspired by the script, and listened to Ingmar talk about what he sensed what he hoped, and waiting for them to interpret what they had read and what they understood in the script. I just knew one thing for sure, which I said before the movie started. I was Ingmar. And since I came to do a lot of films after this, most of his movies, it wasn't that I took any part away from the actresses. I probably took away parts from Max von Sydow or Erland Josephson, and he may have written that script for a man instead as for a woman, with the great exception of scenes from a marriage.
Could you just wait for could we wait for a microphone to reach this gentleman here?
Thank you. Did you personally have any influence on the script itself?
I can tell you that there is no actor in the world working with Ingmar Bergman who would have an influence on his script. And that makes me actually jump to another movie by Ingmar Bergman, and I'll come back to this one with the next question. Because Ingmar felt and meant what I have written, that's it, and don't question it. And then he would wait for the interpretation from the actor. Of course, in many ways, we would influence it because he would watch us and he would see us and he may have another thought of where the camera would be in terms of doing the scene. But we influenced by who we were and what he thought we could do, not by changing the script. And why I'm going to another movie now is really answering what you say. And that is Autumn Sonata, where we had an incredible, famous, fantastic actress called Ingrid Bergman. And she played my mother, and I was her daughter, and she was a pianist, and she went around the world and played and wasn't always home with her daughter. And when she comes for a visit, the daughter is mad and says what a sad, sad life she has had because of the mother. The daughter is now 40 years old and the mother is 60. And at the reading of that movie, first reading, Ingrid would say, "But I can't talk like that. You have to change that line." "You mean I should say, 'oh my'?" I shouldn't say anything. And she went on like that. And when the reading was over and everybody was out of the room, Ingmar was crying. And it was one of the first time I saw him crying. And he said, "I won't be able to do this movie." But he did. And she was fantastic, Ingrid Bergman. But to tell you in what way does an actor influence what is written, didn't happen. We had a long scene, Ingrid Bergman and I, where I, 40 years old, tell my mother, "You have ruined my life. You were never here. I'm a catastrophe in life because of what you have done to me." And I go on for 3 pages, and I'm so angry, and I'm so upset. And this is in the middle of the night, and the mother is just standing there, listening. So we took all my scene first, 3 pages. And I thought I was kind of really good, you know. And then Ingrid Bergman, her answer to all of this was only, "Please hold around me. Please love me." That was her answer. And when I read it, I thought, it's incredible the way she said it. And if I could do that, you know, people would weep and whatever. Camera turns now to Ingrid Bergman. She says, "I'm not going to do it. I want to smack her in the face and leave the room." It was terrible. They screamed to each other. Both of them stood in the studio and they screamed. And then they went out and they screamed, and we knew the movie is over because this was one of the first days. And after a while, the genius comes in, Bergman, and the actress comes in, Ingrid. Genius wins, always. Man wins very often. And she was to say, please hold around me, please love me. The camera is on her. And that's when she does what an artist can do. Yes, she says the words, but she doesn't say, I'm sorry in the words. She is so full of having said, and what women have said for years and years, please excuse me, I will do it my way, I'll dance for you, I'll do whatever. She says, but in her eyes were such anger and such hate. And she says, please hold around me, please love me. It's fantastic. She was nominated for an Oscar for this movie. So that's the best example I can give you, that no, we do not influence Ingmar's writing. But yes, we do influence very, very much what his idea is when he is watching us. Not by changing the text for us, but where the camera would be and what he believes he can get in this face or in this body or maybe far away. That's the way we could influence. Or he would see that Bibi and I was sitting there waiting for the next shot to be done, and we were kind of looking into each other's hands, reading each other's hands, what's going to happen in the future. And suddenly a few days after, oh, the two of them are sitting at the table with the sun hats on and they're looking at their hands. Wasn't his idea. So, so that way we could influence, but that would happen by accident. Or he's sitting at the editing table, and this was never in his mind because it was not in the script. And by some magic, I don't really know what happened, Bibi's face kind of was there, and suddenly my face came at the same time. So he saw half Bibi's face and half mine face more or less together. And he thought it was fantastic, and that happens to incredible artists like Ingmar. And it ended up with this face, which was half Bibi and half Liv, was there in the movie. And while he was sitting at the editing table, he asked Bibi to come in, and she said, oh my God, when did Liv do this? And he asked me to come in, and I said, oh, when did Bibi do this? We did not even recognize ourselves. But that was part of what to be an artist, to be a movie maker, to be a genius, which I really think Ingmar was. You see something and you put it together, but you are the one that does it, not the actors.
Wow. The next question's coming from that side.
Hi. I was curious what like the ways in which your role in Persona with so few lines influenced your acting career moving forward. Did you feel like it taught you some stuff about expressing emotion, or was it just kind of more you adapting to Ingmar's film style?
I can't see you.
Oh, can you? Thank you.
Hi.
Oh,
Here.
how I was influenced?
Like moving forward in your career, like following the Persona role, how did it influence your career moving forward?
Well, you know, I always thought I would be a comedian, and obviously doing all these movies with Ingmar, that was more or less lost for me. But I had a great luggage. And what Ingmar gave me also, he gave me a great trust in myself. I knew I could. Although I'd been an actress for many years, or 7 years before I met him, I knew, having done a few movies with him, I had great trust in myself. It influenced me to be secure as long as I had a camera. I was secure in what my feelings were, what my fantasy was. If I had really worked and seen the script, that what came out of me was probably as good as I could do it. And the same on stage, because I also worked with him on stage. I felt if I really studied the script, if I really was inspired very often, could be by other directors, not the way as with Ingmar, but by other directors. I had great trust in myself that there is magic, for example, in theater, when audience and the actor are at the same wavelength, and it becomes very quiet, and we all are experience life together. Yes, the trust he gave me. And I know that every actor who has worked with him, maybe with the exception of Ingrid Bergman, and I have to say, I admired her. I thought she was great. She never did, you know, what all of us did. She questioned, but that's not how you work with Ingmar. You don't question his lines. But all actors that worked with him had enormous trust in him. And I'm actually sure so did Ingrid when the movie was finished and she saw what she was allowed to do.
Okay, yes, we're coming from that side with the microphone. And Liv, you see the questions in the middle of the second row.
At what point did you know or realize that persona was something special? Was it the script? And then what was your reaction when you saw the final film?
Well, it was hard for both Bibi and me to understand the whole weight or the filmatic weight of it, because we were young, and very much me, because I was 25 years old and she was obviously more mature. What had happened to her, wanting to go quiet, being shocked by the world, wanting to be a listener and a watcher instead of a participant. That's not usual at the 25-year-old. But we had, it was such a wonderful film production. We didn't feel at that time this would be something extraordinary, which it turned out to be at that time. We had just such a close friendship, all of us who were there. It was a small team, and we started in Stockholm, and after a week or two we went to Fårö, Gotland, where he later built his house and where he lived the rest of his life. We just felt this is a place where actors and cinematographers and technicians and directors all are together in a wonderful, warm friendship, but nobody's going to hear about this movie. We were so sure, and I have so many pictures at home where we are writing this to each other. Do you remember? Will anyone know about this movie? And it was an enormous surprise, and I can tell you for Ingmar, it was a tremendous surprise, that it would have this world kind of success, and also among other film directors, very special film directors. So it was a gift, a fantastic gift. And for me, it's kind of changed my life very much.
Something else. In the very back row, which is sometimes hard to see, and it's on the microphone's coming up that side. Thanks.
Hi, thank you very, very much. Just wonderful to see the person who was involved in the experience. I was curious about his directing style. How every day went. Was he very, did he participate? Did he stop? Did he start? Did he let you find your own way? Just a little bit of experience about that would be helpful. Thank you.
He had written a script, and then he was an observer. He would talk around the script, what this scene would be about. He would give you very good blocking. He always gave blocking, you know. You sit here and you probably, on this sentence, you probably would go up and maybe go to the window. And it would be simple directions like that, and he would want us to stick to that. And strangely enough, that blocking also made new thoughts come in. You are angry, and he says, I want you to be sitting in the chair all the time. And then you think first, how can I be angry sitting in a chair? But somehow that puts something completely new into your own creative force. He never said what you were feeling and where you came from and what your parents were and things like that. I mean, I've had so many bad directors. You know, you have a director say, you come in of the door and there's the man you love and your heart goes like this, and then you count to 3 and then you say, you know, your lines, and then you take a pause again and then you say. You can never do that scene again because you come in and your heart is beating and all of that. Ingmar never said that. He never trampled into your own fantasy life. And then he would stand by the camera, he would stand there, and it would be the best audience you will ever have because you knew this man, he sees you, he recognizes you. It's, if you are in love and somebody is listening to you and you communicate and you know what you're doing is being seen and understood, you give everything you have, and that's what we did, because he was this marvelous audience, and he had given us the material, and he had given us the movements, the dance, and then he wanted to see what we gave back. And I did a movie called Passion of Anna, and she was lying a lot. I didn't think she was lying so much, but I wasn't asking him because he was telling me she lies a lot. I thought it sounded really truthful, and then it was a long close-up of me where I tell my husband about my happy marriage and how good it was, and then how bad he maybe was, but you know, I loved him and loved him. And it's at that time one of the longest close-ups that had been done on a movie, and it was like 8-9 minutes. But while I was saying it, because I had this echo of him saying she's lying a lot, I suddenly realized when he said camera and I was in his hands, in his camera, in his story, I suddenly knew she's lying. And without me knowing, my cheeks started to blush, and I got nervous, and all these things happen because he makes the atmosphere. And even though you maybe don't agree with him when you are reading it, you do agree with him at the moment the camera goes and you are in his atmosphere. I was amazed when I saw that close-up because I had no idea in front, you know, that would happen, and it happened.
Yes, and there's a question here in the middle row there. Oh, this microphone is not on.
I wondered, Mr. Bergman hired great actors and actresses, but he also worked with a great cinematographer, Sven Nykvist, and I wondered if you could talk about working with him.
Sven Nykvist was an incredible cinematographer. You know, they say Ingmar, and that is the truth too, is, you know, one of the greatest directors we've had. But Sven Nykvist, you'll find very few cinematographers of today or even yesterday that are not here anymore that won't say that's the master. And he was such a sweet, nice man, and he would speak very little. And Ingmar and he would speak very little. It was like they understood each other, like they had some kind of secret dance. And I remember once they were talking about a light that Ingmar did not want, standing there, and the actor was here. And Sven wanted that light. He said it's going to give something to that scene. And Sven, as good as he could, you know, he said, we really need that lamp. And Ingmar gave in, which is also very seldom for that man. So he gave in. And the next day, at the rushes, it turned out Ingmar was right. That lamp was wrong. And Ingmar got very angry, and he said, you know, we have so little time, and no, we have to do this again, and this is terrible, and Sven, I can't believe that you gave me such advice. And Sven, with his gentle, took it all and didn't say a word, so very quiet. But the truth is, somebody saw him in the studio when everybody had gone home, and he was standing in front of the lamp, and he said, oh, I will take you, I will take you, I will take you. And that's how his aggression came out, never to anyone else. Or sometimes he would come to you and he'd say, I can't even say what you did because my ears were so full of tears. He would say things like that. I loved him so much. He was so good. And we had an American TV team when we were doing this that were coming to make a documentary about Sven Nykvist. And for a scene, suddenly there were thousands of lights and things, you know, and they were filming him, making all these lights, standing there and there and there. And Ingmar stood quiet and let it happen and let it happen. And so they shot the scene, you know, so full of lights. And then they left, and then Sven said, okay, I'll take away the lights and we'll do the scene. And that is what a great cinematographer is, you know. It's not shaped by lights, and so it's shaped by understanding of what this image really is about. Maybe I can say one thing, because this was my first meeting with Ingmar, and of course it did change my life. And I would like to just tell a story that many years after, and we had done a movie, and that was his last movie, called Saraband. And that was made with digital system that Ingmar was not familiar with, and he wasn't so happy doing it this way. But he worked with Alan Josephson and me, and when the movie was over, there was to be a big dinner and celebrate it, and he just couldn't, and he stood in the door of the studio and he said, okay, bye-bye. And he took a private plane to Fårö, Gotland, and he never came back again. And why I want to tell you the story is that he lived there 10 more years and 8 more years, and he lived alone. And we would visit now and then, and I know he longed so much to do a movie, but he didn't want to leave the island. And it became very lonely for a man who lives in solitude. Solitude was also filled with his creative force, and suddenly he wasn't using it. And in the last year, he was ill, and I hadn't seen him that year, but I just knew he wasn't feeling great. And one day I just felt I had to go to Fårö, to Gotland, where he lived. And when we did Saraban, there was one scene that was very important for him. It was somehow a continuation of scenes from a marriage. It was these two people, being old, and they were divorced. And he is sick, the husband, Erland Josephson, and I come to visit. And he's kind of maybe upset that I came. And we're holding around each other, and he said, "So why did you come?" And she answers in the movie, "Because you called me." And so I took this plane to Gotland and drove to Fårö, and I came to his house, and there were two farm ladies that were looking after him, and he was really all alone. And I went into his room, and he was already on his way. So he didn't talk to me because he was on his way, which I didn't know. And I sat there for a long time, and then I wondered, what do I say? And I said to him, "Maybe you wonder why I am here?" And I said, "Because you called on me." He died that night, and I'm telling you this story because somehow you can never explain what happens with a painter or with an actor or with a director, or the whole togetherness we have when we work together. And it could have been somebody else. No, I happened to be the one that night. It's hard to describe, but somehow we feel we are called upon to be together. And I just wish he had been here and all over the world where they're celebrating him, and know that so many people are calling upon him and thanking him, because we live in a world where leaders can give us hate and anger, and generals and politicians and whatever, but sooner or later that will, in the sun, be gone. Whereas the artists, the storytellers, will be there forever and reminding us who we are and how important it is that we are here together.
Lee,